We got Bernadette Woods Placky, the chief meteorologist at Climate Central and the director of Climate Matters. She's also a Pattrn board member, and she was in Egypt for COP27, which is so cool. She arrived back home and joins us now. Bernadette, thanks for joining us. How fun was it to go out to the event?
Well, thanks for having me. It's energizing. I mean, you've covered some of the headlines. I know we're going to get into more, but the other thing that's going on there outside of the negotiations, but influences what happens in the negotiations, is the full conference convention. And there are tens and thousands of people that are a part of that. And there's a lot of energy with people from around the world and all aspects of climate change, from faith and farming and food and water and science and business, who really want to change the world and are trying to move things forward.
Talk about this agreement that the world leaders came to. What would you say is the biggest thing that came out of this?
The most obvious thing is the funding for loss and damage. It got a lot of the headlines going into this meeting, and it has moved forward. And that is a really big deal. So, as you said, the general concept was put out there and was put in the text from this negotiation, but it's going to play out in the next couple of months leading up to next year's COP to learn how this is going to work, who's going to pay what, who's going to get what out of it.
And some of the criticism, as we already kind of discussed, is you have 2 weeks, world leaders meet together, they talk. Okay, you get this form at the end that we all sign, and then you all go back home and nothing comes of it. So how do we change, the whole idea of actually moving the needle?
Well, this is a snapshot of 2 weeks, but it's not just go home and then nothing happens. The real work happens around this. It's sort of, think about it taking a test, right? You're learning, you're going to classes, you're doing work, and then you have to deliver in that moment on the test. That's what COP is. That's the moment when everyone comes together, forced with their face-to-face real conversations, negotiations, promises, and really brings forward where they are and what they can promise for their country. There's so much work that goes on around this that influences what happens there. So that is one thing that I don't think is widely understood. And yes, there's a lot more that's needed. I don't think anyone thinks we got everything we needed out of that. But the reality is we've waited.
Oh no, oh no,
So
frozen, Bern is frozen.
We waited a long time to actually get to this point.
Oh, you're back. Bern, you froze in the middle of that. So we'll just move on to the next question, not knowing exactly where you froze. No, it's okay, it's all right. I want to talk about how President Biden left COP27 in Egypt and went to the G20 summit in Bali, where he met with the president of China. What does, that mean for U.S. and China and the world's 2, of course, largest carbon emitters?
Well, that's some of the other big stuff that comes out of this meeting, right? It's not in the final text of the implementation plan from Sharm el-Sheikh, but the U.S. and China are now talking again, and they're the 2 biggest emitters. So we need to work together to move things forward. The other thing that happened around the edges, too, are a methane pledge, which the U.S. has been behind since last year. And there are now 150 countries that are signed on to that methane pledge, where we're going to reduce methane emissions by 30% by 2030. Another big thing that happened in Bali was the U.S., along with other countries, working together to help phase Indonesia off of coal. And that's a really big deal. And there's a lot banked in that plan, too. And that's not the formal negotiation of COP. That's what this COP negotiation fosters.
You mentioned the methane pledge. I want to go back to that for a second. So more and more countries are jumping on that pledge, which is great. So you reduce your emissions. You have a targeted date. You come, you do all your studying, like you said. You've got your final. You're doing your test. What happens if these countries come up short?
I mean, there's no global wall that's going to hold someone accountable. I mean, that's been pretty well vetted, but it's the process, and the process is really powerful. We need to start somewhere, and it's constantly bringing everyone back, committing more, then going home and seeing how they can make those commitments become a reality. And as we learn, and as we work together, and as we grow technology and research and development, that can create momentum and acceleration moving forward.
All right, speaking of that, moving forward, Bern, there'll be another COP next year. I think it's in Dubai next year, if my memory is correct. So what should we be looking for within the next year leading up to the next COP? What do you think will be grabbing the headlines?
One of the things really needing to get more attention is how do we bend that emissions curve quicker? We need to accelerate and supersize the solutions that exist in this world because there's a lot of good stuff going on. The warming's just happening faster, and we need to switch that. So there's going to be a lot of conversation on pledges, how we make those pledges actual commitments and realities.
We heard a lot of really emotional speeches from some of these world leaders, especially from some of the smaller island nations. Did you feel, I don't know if you went to any of those personally, but could you feel that resonate? And did other people, you think, have the same reaction?
They are powerful. And yes, I absolutely felt it. And these people are speaking from the heart. They're speaking from their daily reality. And we need to listen because some of these countries, the small island states, some of the developing countries in Africa, and it was an African COP, don't have the resources we have here. They don't even have the data, the measurements to understand when some of these storm systems are coming their way and what to do to stay safe from them. So there are big gaps from where we are in the United States to some of these other countries, and it's really important to listen to their realities.
All right, Bernadette Woods Placky, always good to see you. Love having
Great
Bern on
seeing you
from
guys.
Climate Central. She's the
Happy
best of the best.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
Happy Thanksgiving to you as well.